Hey everyone, Eric here, and I'm going to take you on a tour of an app called Quizizz. Now, Quizizz is just such a nice, well-rounded app, and they give you tons of different things for free. I wanted to show this app because it's really useful for hybrid situations or distance learning, and they've added something brand new called Lessons, which we'll talk about as well, but again, a nice feature for hybrid or distance learning. So to start with, you'll need to create a Quizizz account. And after your account is created, if you're an educator, you're going to get more features. So make sure you answer the questions they ask you about what school you teach at and some different things like that. All right, so let me take you around the basic page. So Explore is where you will see quizzes that other teachers have created, and you can copy them and use them with your students to save time. Couple things to be aware of with this. Number one is I would highly recommend looking through those pre-made quizzes to make sure everything in there is correct, make sure it's all appropriate. Just keep that in mind. Okay. The other thing is you can actually copy specific questions from a quiz. So if you want to create your own quiz, but you want to grab some of the questions and answers, you can cherry pick questions and answers from other quizzes that have been made. So you don't have to copy the entire quiz, which is really nice. Okay, there's your library, and this is where your the things that you have either copied or you've created are going to live right there. You have reports. So as your students are answering questions in the quizzes, you can get reports where you can look at which students missed which questions were most missed. Lots of great reports. And then classes, this is where you can have your students log into a class. So here's the two differences, the different scenarios. So first one, if you create classes, your students join the class, and then they don't have to put in a code to look at the different quizzes you create. If you don't create a class, then your students will just need a code every time they want to view that quiz. So if you're going to use Quizizz maybe once or twice, it would be fine to just have your students use the code or the link to join that quiz. But if you're going to use it quite a bit, I would recommend creating a class. And when you create a class, it's going to ask you if you want to require students to enter a guardian's email address. This would be in a situation where you wanted to share the results with parents. Okay, I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to call my class second grade, or maybe I'll call it first grade here, and create class. There we go. Now I just need to share this link with my students, and then it will ask them for their name and information. Just remind students to use their first name and last initial for privacy. Okay, then you have some settings, different things like that. Now, I have the basic version of Quizizz right here. I'll show you when I can where there's premium features so you can see those differences, but really with the free version, you can still do an awful lot in here. So first, let's go through and let's look for something that somebody's already created. So let's say I'm doing math facts. Okay, now you can see that it'll show me the different pre-made options here. And then as I hover over them, I can see a preview over here on this side of what those look like. So you can kind of tell whether or not they're going to fit your needs. Okay, so here's a basic one right here. Oh, great, it's got some 2-digit addition. Maybe that looks like one that I would like. So I'm going to click Save. And then it's going to ask me what kind of collection I want to put it into. So collections are just folders that you can place these into so they're easier to find later. Along with this preview, also I should mention that you can play the quiz as a student just to see what it looks like on the student end, which is kind of nice too. Okay, now if I go back to my library, then this is where all of the different things that I've saved will be added. And I can view things in my library by collections. You can see the different things over here. So I can see just that math collection. I can see my entire library, things that were created by me, just other options to make it easier to find things. Okay, but let's go to the next part of this, which would be creating my own quiz. So let me click Create. Now you can see that creating a quiz is the top option. We'll talk about lessons in just a minute. And then creating a quiz is really quite simple. Okay, so I just click, put in a title, put in the subject area, and click next. And then as you create this, it's going to give you options for each question of how you want them to look. So let's start out by doing multiple choice. And it'll give you a preview over here on this side of what it looks like for students. So let's see, what is 2 more than 4? Okay, so I can type it out. I can also do an equation. So if you're a teacher teaching middle school, high school, something like that, and you need something you're not going to find on your keyboard, basically, right over here. That's kind of nice. And then also you can add an image up here instead of text. Then audio and video, very nice features. You do have to have the premium version of Quizizz to use those. And then for your answer, you can either type out text, or you can use that equation option again, or you can add an image. Now, adding an image is nice if you are doing shapes, let's say, and you want to say which is a rectangle, and it will replace the text with an image instead. Okay? All right, so I put in my different options. There we go. And I can add more than 4, but I can also have less than 4. Now, if you have the paid version, you can add a fun fact or explanation, or even tag the topic. Okay? And then you can choose how long you want students to have to answer these. Now, even if you chose 30 seconds, when you choose to assign this to your students, you can take these options off. So for example, maybe I said that I only wanted students to have 30 seconds, but then I realized that my kids didn't like having that time on there. When I assign it, it'll ask me if I want to have them timed. I'll show you that in a little bit. Right now, I just need to make sure I click the check mark next to the correct answer and hit save. And there we go. I would recommend also adding a quiz image because the students will see this. It makes it a little more professional looking. Add grades means what grades you want this to be for. So I can say I want this for 2nd grade through 3rd grade. And then public means I want to share it with everyone in Quizizz. They can use my quiz that I created, or I can make it private. Even if it's private, my students can still, it's visible to my students if I assign it. Okay? All right, I hit save. There we go. Now let's add something else here. Maybe a poll. What is your favorite math sign? Okay, and this would be a good one to use this math here. So I could do plus. There we go. I could do times. Okay, you get the idea. And then I can go ahead and save that. There's a poll. And with polls, there's no correct answer for this. So it will not grade your students. So when you look and see the data afterward, it's not going to say whether they got something right or wrong. One other thing that you should know about is this teleport feature. This is so nice. When I click on teleport, it's going to let me search other similar quizzes that have already been created. And I can look through them and say like, oh, you know what? I think it'd be nice to have this in there. It'll show me the question, and then the green selection there is the answer. If I like that, I can click add, and it will just automatically add that to my quiz. So what a great time saver there, instead of having to copy that or copy the entire quiz. Once again, I just went to teleport, okay? And then I went to a specific quiz that was created, and then I said, oh yeah, I like this one, and it looks like it has the correct answer, add. And it'll add that right to your quiz. I use this a lot to save time with students, or when I'm creating these for students. Okay, so now I'm all done with this. I hit done, okay? And then it's going to ask if I want to go ahead and assign it right away, or it is saved to my library. So if I go to my library, then I can always find it later. I can edit it there and all that, okay? Now, this is a great time to stop and talk about the different modes for using Quizizz. So you can either do a live quiz, or they call it assigning homework, which means that students can do it asynchronously on their own time, okay? So let's, first if I did a live quiz, it's going to ask if I want it to be instructor paced, which is really nice, especially for distance learning, because I can make sure that students aren't zipping along and saying, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done, answering quickly. Or you can do it the classic way, which in Quizizz, they can progress at their own pace. So if you think that would work better for students, you can do it that way. Students can answer as quickly as they want to and finish at their own speed. Okay, so those are two options there. When you assign it as homework, this will allow you to just post it to them and then give them a deadline of when you'd like to see it end. And then you can go through and see some other settings that would be what you would want for your class. Okay? All right, so now that we've talked about assigning these different quizzes, let's talk about creating a lesson. So a lesson allows you as the teacher to mix quiz questions and polls and things like that into a slide deck. So you can use it as a teaching tool. So let's try this. How about I was teaching my students about mammals. Okay. So how this is laid out is over here on the right-hand side, you're going to see that I can add some basic text. And then I can add some different pictures. So it'll give you some different default images, but you can also upload them. So like for example, I just downloaded a picture of a dog. There we go, I can add that onto my main page, and there we go. So I can add more slides to this by clicking Add Slides. So I can either add these basic slides, and again, this would be where I was teaching students about mammals. And then I can also add interactive slides as well. So for example, I could add a poll next. And for this poll, I could say, do you know what a mammal is? Or what mammals are? Okay, let's try that. There we go. And then I could have some different answers. Also, right up there, allow multiple selections. Just one little thing to be aware of there. Yes, no, not sure. There we go. Same options as before, adding images and different math equations, and same option down here for timer. Okay, so there we go. Now I can add another slide. So you see how that that workflow goes. You still have the option of teleporting, so I can look and see other mammal projects and say, ooh, I like that. I can add that right to my slide deck. So it works the same way as when you're creating quizzes. Another thing that you can do is you can import slides from something you've already created. So you can import slides from Google Slides, PowerPoint, any PDF document. One thing to be aware of is when you add these is that they are going to be added as a PDF. For example, if I added a Google slide deck, you can see right here it's showing me that I will need to save them as a PDF document before I upload them, which means if you have videos embedded, they will not work. If you have links, they will not work. It's just a flat document. So what I would recommend is if you're going to import things from a slide deck, then do the interactive parts within Quizizz. So I can put all those slides for teaching, and then I can add the quizzes and polls later and then save it. All right, so I'm going to publish this and save it. And now it is in my library. Now I'm ready to have my students do this lesson with me. And again, I could do it asynchronously or live. I'm going to click on live. And then they're going to give you some different options. I'm going to click present. All right, let's see what my students are going to see here. So let me bring up my student device. Okay, there it is right there. Now, again, if you have your students join your class, they will not need to put in a game code. But for this example, my student's going to need to put in that game code, and you can see that the game code is right up here on the top. Okay, join, and then it's going to ask them to put in their name. Okay, so let's put that in and hit enter. And it says waiting for the host to start. So I'm going to go ahead and click start. And then the students are going to see what I'm seeing here. So I can go through and talk about mammals. I can go on to the next slide. Aha, okay. So you can see here that I have a poll. Let's bring up my student device, and you see what they see. Okay. So they make their answer, and on my end, it shows me the poll results. I go to my next slide. we go. I'll give a little countdown. There we go. So, am I a mammal? Now you can see on the teacher end, it's showing me which students are participating. Let me go down. I'll pull up the student device. So here's my student device right here. Am I a mammal? Yes. Okay. And it'll give you feedback if you're correct or not. And then you can see as the teacher how that quiz is going. Okay, so let's get out of this and go back. There we go. Let's go back home. Now, the last thing I want to show you after you do those things with your students is that you can see reports. So I can see a report for each one of the different quizzes that I have assigned, and you can view which students did them, which questions they missed. There's a lot of great data that you can find here. So if you want to use this for formative assessments, things like it works really well for that. All right, so that was Quizizz.